Hello, everyone. I'm adjusting the... I don't like to see how many people are on, but I do like to see the numbers.
The thumbs up?
No, the time.
Oh.
I like to see how long it is. Anyway, hey, pussies! Welcome to the 16th video with me. I'm Positive Pussy, and I'm super excited for today's video on... I'm going to do drum roll. BDSM! Okay, I brought a guest on today.
What's up?
Say hi.
I'm Nick.
This is Nick, and you've never watched the show.
Yeah.
You've never watched not even one. Very supportive friend. But that's okay. I'm still happy to have you on, and thanks for coming. Far walk. Before we get freaky, I wanted to let you all know, if you want to watch the show, you can stay up to date with my videos by subscribing to my YouTube channel. It's Positive Pussy, following me on Twitter at Positive Puss, and you can check out my website, positivepussy.live, for all the amazing links to the awesome resources that I post. So let's get started. BDSM. So, do you think that BDSM has negative connotations?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Definitely does. It does. Why do you think that is?
I guess. Well, no. Some people would see it as abuse, or some sort of maybe like manipulation.
I think it's
anything like that.
Overwhelming for people sometimes.
Yeah.
Like if you see like a BDSM room or something with all the stuff like everywhere. I think that like that 50 Shades of Grey movie was all like shock factor. It was like, look at this room. What are all those things on the wall? I think picks like the smallest whip.
Yeah.
But the rest were just like shock factor.
They made it for Hollywood.
Yeah. So BDSM doesn't have to include pain. The sexual tastes of people vary, and that's amazing and good, and the best part about sex. And abuse, like you said, is sometimes maybe associated with it, but abuse and BDSM are very different, and I think the main thing is consent. So BDSM revolves around consent. It's absolutely necessary if you're relinquishing control to someone, being tied up or spanked or choked. It's extra important to have consent. And BDSM is not being done correctly if it's not SSC. Do you know what that means?
No, I do not.
You've never heard SSC?
I've never heard that.
It stands for safely, sanely, and consensually.
Makes sense.
So if BDSM is not being done safely, sanely, and consensually, then it's not being done correctly. You're doing something else. So safely, obviously, is be safe. Especially when you're doing crazy things like being suspended. Sanely, I think, just refers to like being not under the influence of heavy drugs or alcohol unless you're consenting beforehand to do that. And consensual non-consent is something kind of like that. Do you know what that is?
What, consent?
Consensual non-consent.
Are you talking about like if they say no, but they actually want you to go? So,
yeah, kind of. So like you would talk about it beforehand,
right.
Of course. You can either be like, yeah, like let's get super fucked up drunk tonight and then have sex. Like if you're agreeing to it before, that's technically considered consensual non-consent. But in the BDSM scene, it's more like rape fantasy, stuff like that, like being kidnapped or having a resistant sub, which is something you're familiar with. Having a resistant sub who's gonna like fight back or resist, even though you are kind of forcing yourself on them. You're not technically doing that because they consented to have you force themselves on them. Yes, okay. There's another one called RAC, which is risk-aware consensual kink. What do you think that one means? What do you think risk-aware means?
That
clear. It's pretty obvious.
That you could do could be risky.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously, BDSM is sometimes risky. There's an inherent risk in tying somebody up, or slapping someone. And some people do want their sexual experiences to be painful and they get off on that. And some people don't want it to hurt. Do you like pain at all? I think you do, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, but my partner does not like pain at all. He's kind of a little wimp. And that's okay. It's totally okay. No shame in not liking it. Luckily for him, I do, so it's good. Just remember to be communicative. That's a word. Communicative. And I fucking told you this was gonna happen. Live videos, everybody. Live videos. I guess you can just put it there. So, if you guys didn't know, this is just my closet. And the curtains in front of my closet happen to have cats on them. And the tension rod just fell down. And I fucking told Nick that if he leaned on it too much, it would fall. And it did. It fell. That's you being punished. Okay, you need to get over maybe a little bit more.
I'm not touching it.
Okay. You don't have to lean against the... Okay. So that was just a little hiccup. Have fun. Nice. I told you. Okay. So if you're new to BDSM, just start slow. Is that good advice?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you have to make sure to have an honest conversation about what you do want and don't want. And in BDSM relationships, this talk is usually called negotiation. You've heard that term before, right? I know you have because we were just talking about it.
Oh, yeah. Negotiation?
Yeah. But okay, so a lot of people don't use that term. They're just like, let's just have a talk about what we want and don't want. But negotiation is the term that they use for just the conversation beforehand. You are supposed to talk about what both parties are consenting to do. And some people have a written up contract for their negotiation, a master-slave contract. And some people just have a conversation beforehand. But have you ever had a written up contract?
Yeah, I have.
You've had a written contract? I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. What, you just sat down and hashed it out together on a kitchen table? Wait, what was it written on? That's what I want to know.
A computer.
Okay. That makes sense. I thought you were
no, we weren't
scripting it in a contract form just to sign it.
No, it was typed out and then we went over it.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Was it hard to stick to the contract?
Some stuff was, but most of it wasn't.
I'm nervous that it's gonna fall down now again. Oh my gosh. Sorry. Okay. This is a live video, everybody. Shit happens. Okay, so negotiations. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that you had a written one. I think I would definitely like to do that, but I don't know if I would do a 24/7 type deal.
Yeah.
Just because I ain't got time for that. But I would do something that's 24/7 at home or all the time at home or whatever. Anyway, just make sure you talk about everything beforehand. Establish consent for all activities. And if you are if you want to consent to a scene where you want to scream out no or resist, that's usually when you would discuss a safe word. So let's talk about safe words and safety systems. Fun, safety. Sorry. What safe words have you had in the past?
It's usually food, like horchata.
Oh, yeah. That was horchata. Yeah, it is usually food for me too.
Or vegetables, or it's usually fruit or vegetables or drinks.
I had one with one guy, and he was really into fashion, or he was really into Ralph Polo or the polo shirt with the guy. Yeah. So our safe word was polo for a little bit. And I was
Did you guys say Marco at all?
No, that would have been funny if I was he was Marco. I'm Keep going. So what makes a good safe word? What do you think makes a good safe word?
Something that you guys will definitely both remember.
Remember.
And know that you can say without getting confused with something else during the
Okay,
thing.
yeah, oh yeah, that's a good one. Have you seen, there's a Portlandia episode where you don't watch Portlandia, huh?
I haven't seen it. No.
Well, there's a Portlandia episode for those of you who do watch Portlandia. It's really funny, and she's like, our new safe word is cacao. And every time he like went to touch her, she'd be like, cacao. It was a good one. Anyway, you don't have to have a safe word, or you can have like a color system. So like green, like if you like get hit or they're like, can I hit you? It could be like green, yellow, red, and that's just for like constant communication.
Yeah.
Or you could have like a number system. So like if you're being spanked or something and it starts to get too hard, you can start saying, okay, like that's like a 7, 8. And if they're like, you think you could take a 9, you could be like, no, or yes, try a 9. And then if it's like, nope, that's too far, like, you know, you figure it out. And if you're being gagged, you can have like a hand signal or some sort of body movement that will indicate like I need to get out of this gag. I'm gagging for reals. And you don't need a safe word if you're not engaging in like consensual non-consent activities, or yeah, like if you're not being a little bit bratty or resisting. But it's always good to have one just in case you do want to resist, like in the middle of it.
Yeah.
If you're like, ooh, I actually feel like fighting now and I didn't realize before I was gonna fight. It's just good to have some sort of thing that's like different from no also. So it's like, oh, this is a hard stop.
Some indication.
Yeah, because especially when you're in a scene, you know, you're like not always being yourself. So if you are right. like saying no, like they could take it as like, oh, but we're in the scene. So having a safe word is always a good idea. Oh yeah, so just say no if you don't want to have one though, but obviously just say no. Okay, I learned something recently. Can I demonstrate on you? So I learned a good way to gauge how hard to hit somebody, kind of using the number system, and then also just like in the middle of, can I just demonstrate? I'll hit you, but not too hard. Okay, let's see. And so you start like doing it like this, and like slowly getting harder until like, you know, you get to the point where they're like, actually, okay, you like start to say like, oh, like you're getting warmer or something, like to like, this is, you're getting close to my limit.
Yeah. When you do like the small slaps first too, it makes it so the harder slap isn't as painful.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. It kind of like reduces the sensitivity a little bit.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's smart. That's a smart thing. I didn't know that. Okay. So we've been saying BDSM scene, or at least I have. I've been using that term. So what is a scene? You want to explain it, or you want me to?
I would think a scene would be something that you guys discussed beforehand, and then when you do it, you act as you would.
Yeah. So it's just all the activities that take place, that it's kind of like the dividing. So like you divide the scene from real life.
Yeah.
Right. So the scene is just basically all of the BDSM activities. And it's a really good way to differentiate reality from the scene, because when you're in a scene, you're not necessarily playing who you are in real life. So a lot of times submissives are people who have a lot of control in their real life, and they need to relinquish control and like relax in order to have a good sexual experience. And stuff that happens in reality shouldn't be, or I don't like to say shouldn't, but it's not typically brought into the scene. So do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, you keep it separate. Like, okay, it's time for sex in the scene.
Yeah, but also route, like,
and then hey, let's go back to normal life.
Yeah, and I think like you shouldn't be punished for like things you do outside of the scene. So like if I'm pissed off at my partner because like the kitchen is so dirty for 5 days and hasn't cleaned this.
No, I understand.
I wasn't trying to be like subliminal.
No. I would never think it's a good idea to do like any type of scene if you're sad at one another, because then you could, bring out those emotions. Yeah, you should like. It's not a good idea to be upset in real life and then try to do a scene with that person that you're upset with. Yeah, it could get confusing. But so the point of the term is to just help talk about like
the BDSM activities versus real life. So the BDSM, it's about like the role play of the dynamic that's set up in the negotiation, and the scene is sexy because you can let go of your inhibitions and leave all the real stuff behind and just like have sexy fun. Did you know you knew all that terminology, right?
Yeah, I did most of it, yeah.
Okay, good. I'm just making the thing is like I didn't use any of that terminology ever until I started doing research and like getting into the scene, like the BDSM community, because like then I realized, oh, like these are terms that are used to describe these things that we've already been doing. It's just like this is how they talk about it.
Yeah.
So if you listen to any BDSM podcasts or you like get some information about it, these are terms that will be used, and this is how they're described. And you can find all of these definitions and stuff on most BDSM websites and stuff. But it's fun to have people explain it to you with curtains falling down and all that shit. So BDSM is not just about the sex. That's not always like the main goal. It's often incorporated, but doesn't have to be a part of the scene. It can be just about the sensations or the psychological aspect of it. Okay, do you know I know you know it. What does BDSM stand for, Nick?
Bondage, discipline, sadism, masochism.
You missed one.
What? Mm-hmm. Bondage, discipline, sadism, masochism.
So there's 3.
But you could like switch it out. It's different for like who you ask, I guess.
There's always 3.
What?
There's
like
4?
No, you could like interchange these.
Yeah, it's like a 3-part. It's BD, DNS, and SNM.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. That's why I said you missed one.
Oh, I see.
You didn't miss a letter, you just missed one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, B and D, bondage and discipline. DNS, dominance and submission. And SNM, sadism and masochism. Some people engage in all of the letters and some just a couple, but there are lots of different types of relationships that exist in the BDSM realm. So bondage and discipline is exactly what it sounds like. You're being bonded. Well, the first part, I'll talk about bondage. It can include sensory deprivation, so like being blindfolded, chained up, tied up. It can include impact play, which is basically being impacted with an object or hand. Role playing, obviously. Teasing is one of them. Bondage is just like handcuffs, ropes, belts, gags, just to name a few. There's light bondage, having your hands tied, and then heavy bondage, which would be like not being able to move at all, having ropes and stuff. And again, it doesn't have to involve sex. A lot of bondage and discipline is about the sensory play and the role playing. And then like a lot of the sex part comes like after all of that fun stuff. But discipline is a reference to rules about attitudes and what you can do, how you refer to your dominant, if you have to call them master or mistress. This can also take a heavier form, so the dominant can place rules on all aspects of the sub's life. And discipline also implies that there are consequences for breaking the rules, which are usually discussed during the negotiation. So bondage and discipline, do you do any of these?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, bondage, I don't.
Yeah,
you definitely do bondage.
Yeah,
you got ropes.
I would say both.
Ropes and the discipline. So like rules. That's a fun one.
Yeah, that can be really fun.
I really like ropes, and I really want to be suspended. I can't wait for that to happen. And I do a lot of honor bondage. So like you're told to hold a position and not to move unless your dom says it's okay, and you get punished for breaking the honor bondage, or at least I do. That's part of our negotiation, I guess. And discipline and consequences can be super hot, because if you're a little bad and you like the consequence of getting spanked, or you like to be restricted by the rules because you like to be teased, there's just a lot of aspects to it.
Some people just like doing it just to break the rules.
Yeah. I think that's a huge part of it. Like, let's put up rules just so like I can break them. That's part of the fun for some, or for brats especially. Okay, so dominance and submission. This one is a play with consensual power exchange. So the submissive relinquishes control and power over the situation to the dominant. So I say relinquish because the dom doesn't take control.
Right.
There's consent there. So the sub must give it. Oh, this is a debate that I actually heard recently. Do you think who has more power, the dom or the sub?
The sub 100%.
Yeah, I've been hearing that a lot.
The sub has most, if not all of it.
Right? And it's so funny because, like...
There's no dom without a sub.
That's true. They're so true. There's just horrible people.
Yeah.
There's just Theon Greyjoy. Or not savage. Him, the other one. I've been watching Game of Thrones, guys. So, yeah, this is why negotiation is super important for doms and subs. Oh, and I've been saying dom and sub, but dominant is also interchangeable with top, and submissive is also interchangeable with bottom. I don't know. I just like using dom and sub. But anyway, the dom doesn't want to abuse their power. There needs to be trust. So, yeah. The submissive can grant as little control over the situation or as they want, or like they can give up their whole lives. Every relationship is different, and not every dom wants to take on the responsibility of another person's whole life. It's just about what works for you in your BDSM relationship. So what this is all about you. So you're a dom.
Yeah.
You're not a switch at all.
No, I am.
You think you'd be a switch a little bit?
I know I am.
Oh. You don't want to get your hands tied up, though.
No, I only do sub stuff with particular people.
You don't like bondage. Okay. So it's only particular people. So you didn't want me to tie you up.
Only certain people get to see that
side. I see. Wow. All right. So how do you try to like make sure that your subs feel safe and like what kinds of things? You said, okay, so there's no doms without a sub, right?
Right.
How do you make your subs feel like they're the important ones?
Well, definitely have the communication.
Yeah.
And then take all the safety precautions, definitely. I mean, I'm going to say communication again because I would say that is so important that you guys do that. Because, like, there's literally nothing can happen without it.
That's true. Yeah, you got to talk about it and stuff. But, like, okay. What do you...
I would say, like, making them feel special.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, like, what do you think you're doing? Like, why do you think they like it? You're making them feel special. You have to ask them.
Yeah, you ask them.
So what do you think is, like, why do you think you're a dom, per se?
It's just fun. It's just like a temporarily release in the moment, and then it creates, like, a different level of intimacy with another person that you don't get in, like, a regular relationship.
I think, for me, like, being a sub is more because, like, I just feel so much better than all the guys I meet all the time. I need to relinquish my control to them every now and then. I don't know, because, like, it's different with females. I don't feel as submissive with some women, but some women I do. I don't know.
Personality.
Yeah, it really does. And you guys know, like, relationships with people, it's always different with a different person. But I think that I am a dom in a different sense, just not a physical sense. Which brings us to sadism and masochism. The last but not least, anyway, I think that this is the part of BDSM that kind of gets people a little sketched out because there's whips, canes, paddles, and when you're in it, it can be super intimate. It's like a very intimate moment. When you're hitting someone and, you know, you're feeling pain and you're giving somebody pain, there's a lot of, like, connection that's there. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Like, I know that you've had sex that's, like, not BDSM and then sex that is, obviously.
Right.
Like, the BDSM sex, those are with people that you have that connection with.
You really trust and you have a good communication level with.
Yeah.
So, complete understanding between both of you.
And I think even afterwards, like, it feel like that grows so much more.
Yeah.
Like, you feel so much closer to the person that's, like, spanking you because they love you. So yeah, I think that, so sadists, sorry, I didn't describe them. Sadists derive sexual pleasure from giving pain, and masochists enjoy receiving it. So you're a sadist? No? Yes? Maybe? Yeah. Masochist? Yeah. Yeah? Both? Yeah, both. I'm both as well. Well, I think I am definitely a masochist because I like to receive pain physically. I don't know if I'm a masochist in the way that I like to be a sadist. Okay. So, because pain in this sense, it's not restricted to the physical pain, so it can be emotional or psychological pain in the form of degradation or humiliation. So I'm super into that. I'm a huge nagger of guys. You know what nagging is?
No, what is
nagging? That? It's kind of okay. Nagging, it's like where you're like mean to them, but in a flirty way.
Okay. No, yeah, I dig that.
Yeah, so I'm like I like to nag guys, and I have like no intention of like actually like getting with them. I just like to nag them because it's kind of a sexual play. It's like fun. Flirty, satisfying. Yeah. But I think even beyond that, like in the bedroom and stuff, like I'm kind of into that humiliation, like degradation thing. Me giving it out, not receiving it.
Right, I'm the same way.
I think there's like but like I can take pain. I just don't want to be humiliated too much. Yeah. And that like comes in a lot of different forms. It's not like they're like just saying bad names to you, but like I love to like dirty slut is like it counts as humiliation. I take that. I like that a lot, but I guess I like it all. Whatever. You know what? I'm into it. I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, so bruises and marks. I wanted to talk about this because I think that in BDSM, we really do like the bruises and the marks, and some people wear them as like trophies and honors and badges, and I love looking at them. Like after it's over, I can like see it, and I'm like, remember that really sexy time I had? Don't worry, I think you're fine. Do you like bruises and marks?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay. But I wanted to say to be safe and smart, because you don't want people to think you're being abused, because BDSM is all about consent. It's not abuse. And there are certain laws in certain places where it's like you don't even have to press charges against somebody if there's even like a sign of assault. You could get in trouble. So just make sure you know the laws in your area and like do it in a place where you're not gonna like people aren't gonna see you. You're not gonna get in trouble, or it's a safe space like a BDSM place where there's events, and I'll talk about that a little bit. So the last vocab word. This is like literally a vocabulary lesson. But the last one is aftercare. So how would you describe aftercare?
What the sub needs to like after the scene to know that you still care for them and you guys are just like in a role, and to make them feel safe and special and everything's okay, and it wasn't actually you like actually inflicting pain and stuff on them. Yeah. I think it's just like making sure that you guys are both okay with what happened. Yeah. I think this is where you can kind of talk about like what was super hot about it and like what went well and like what things you really did like and maybe would want more of next time, and like things you could change, whatever. Just like that's like a general conversation. And I think it definitely involves physical care. So like holding each other and cuddling, and sometimes I read this on the internet, but like the dom will bring the sub ice. No one's ever done that to me. I've never had, I guess, a bad enough mark for that to elicit that. But I think it's just like that connection afterwards is super important. Right. I remember I went to a sex club once and I watched a whole rope scene go. And the aftercare was so amazing to see. Like after they were all down, it was two girls and one guy was doing the ropes. And they were all on this one big comfy love seat, and they were just like in one big cuddle pile. Yeah, and they were just like holding each other and just like talking, and it was just the sweetest, like most amazing image of aftercare I've ever seen. And all the ropes were like on the floor, so it was perfect. It was amazing. But anyway, for me, because I'm polyamorous, this also involves talking to my other partners and making sure that they also feel loved. And the truth is that you can have like a BDSM come down. And the aftercare will help you come back into reality. Being like hit or spanked or just like being in this like really intense sexual situation
you release a lot of different endorphins and hormones and adrenaline. And so like aftercare is actually really important because you do have a come down. Like you literally are like immediately withdrawal. But that's with everything. Okay, guys, don't be so like. All right. So BDSM is a sexual lifestyle, and I emphasize sexual because oftentimes someone who is submissive during sex, like I said, is someone who's not submissive at all in their everyday life. And just like everything, there's a spectrum to BDSM, but it's more like a Venn diagram. But I'll post some pictures on my website, probably for part 2. But there are people who dedicate their whole lives to being masters or slaves, and people who just experiment with it once. And both of those are normal, and whatever makes you happy, I suggest you just do whatever that is. And all of these BDSM relationships can be expressed in different ways, and some of the more common ones have names, but in my part 2, I'm going to talk about all the different expressions. But since I have Nick here, we can talk about our experiences with BDSM. I can go first if you want. Sure. I'll go first. Okay, so for me, my experience, I guess I'll tell you. I'm like, okay, I wrote something, so I'll just read it. I have a Dom, and he's a specific kind of Dom. He's a daddy, and I have a collar. It's this one, and it's basically a symbol of our relationship. And there's a bunch of BDSM symbols that I'll talk about next week as well. And I wear the collar to like raves or sex clubs, but I don't wear it outside of the bedroom, and except for this video, and outside of scenes, because like outside of the scene our roles fade away and we're equals. And because of that, like I do feel comfortable being like not in control during sex. But I know for you in the past, BDSM has played a large part in your life. But I mean, what about now? What kind of expression would you want to have? Like, would you ever go back into like that contract thing again, or like what's the perfect situation for you?
Well, that's a good question. I would do the contract if it was with the right person. Although I would say that's more rare to do because that could be more intense. There's a lot more that goes into it because you're writing it in. I don't know about the perfect, I guess, relationship. Similar to the whole daddy dom. Something similar to that. That would be.
You can have like a bunch of little children, a bunch of little girls at your disposal. King Daddy. That's funny. That would be so good. Yeah, I definitely like in some of my other relationships where like BDSM has creeped in. It's always been kind of like this dominant male that's like the daddy role, and I mean, I'll own it. I've got daddy issues. It's fine. And that's another misconception of BDSM. But I'm gonna talk more about BDSM in my part 2, like more of this, like how do you get into it, and like the past of people. But it can come from childhood trauma. It doesn't have to, but it can, and that's totally okay. And I'm like kind of happy that I get to experience this because it's super fun, and I don't care why. It just is, and it's good. But yeah, so there's a test online, BDSMtest.org. I've mentioned it before, but it can give you some insight into what your BDSM expression is. It also gives you your vanilla score. So if you're not BDSM, it'll tell you that as well. And I will tell you my scores. Do you want to tell? You can tell your. Do we have time? Maybe I should wait till next week. Yeah, I'll do next week. Yeah, I'm gonna save it for next week. So yeah, everyone should take it. I suggest that everyone take it. I'm not gonna tell you what you should do, but if you don't want to take it, that's cool. But I'll give my scores next week, and if I have another guest, I'll make them take it, and you don't have to share yours. It's fine. But yeah. Oh yeah, and I also don't want to send the message that vanilla sex is less valuable than kinky sex, because BDSM and vanilla sex are not mutually exclusive. You can have regular sex in between scenes, or a part of a scene, or separate from the scene, whatever you want. But I mean, everyone has vanilla sex every now and then, and some people, dabble in BDSM, and that's okay too. But BDSM is not for everyone, and it's for some people sometimes, some people all the time, and some people will never try it. And all of this is normal and an exploration of your sexuality. And it does involve a level of risk, and it involves a lot of care and responsibility and excellent communication. And it's easy for some people and really hard for others. But if you are interested in BDSM and you want to explore it, do you have any tips for people who might be? I'm gonna give some, but if you have any other ones, you can add them. How about that? Okay. So basically, do research. Local events, meetups for beginners. There's FetLife, which is a good place to find meetups. You can go to a Munch, which is a public meetup with a large group of people in the community, and it's just like a social thing. It's not like a play thing, so there's no sexual stuff or BDSM going on, which I really want to go to one soon, so we should go. But there's a website called findamunch.com help you find a munch in your area, and then you can go to a class. A lot of sex shops or sex education centers will have like classes on bondage or impact play toys. Some dungeons will sometimes have classes. There are online classes by people who are sex educators. So if you're not in a big city or nearby a sex shop, you can get one online. And there's also a bunch of books about BDSM, and I'm going to talk about some. I don't need to say any. Oh yeah, well, the best way to get involved is probably, if you're like super serious, is to go online, explore, go on FetLife, and find public meetings with big groups of people. But whatever you do, remember the rules of consent and don't touch anyone without their permission, and speak up if your boundaries are crossed. Okay, so the resources for this episode or video, I don't do episodes. I put on here Reddit.
Can be, but I say just watch what you get from there.
I'm saying, so like I went to the Reddit BDSM, and it's a little overwhelming. So just be careful with that, because like if you go on there and you like see something that's like really scary or something that you would never want to do, don't get scared away, because there's just a lot of different expressions of BDSM. So like there's a bunch of stuff on there. There's a lot of stuff on there, and you might get overwhelmed, but it's a good place to find some information or to see if something is turning you on. I don't know. Like I was scrolling through getting a little turned on myself. So do you have any other advice maybe before?
Communication. It's so important.
Like if you're going to try it with somebody, definitely like make it somebody that you can talk to.
Yeah.
Like
you gotta trust them.
I think the first time I did BDSM stuff was with a friend with benefits, but like that's because like our communication was so good, because we weren't nervous about like the terms of a relationship. We were able to like really talk to each other and establish a really good trust. But yeah, so more resources. If you go to BDSM Wiki, did you know that was a thing? They have BDSM FAQ. And there's this new podcast I started listening to, which is really awesome. It's called Ersties. It's Ersties, the Ersties podcast. And it's 4 women, and they all have accents, so it's amazing to listen to. And on their episode 2, they have a femdom on, and she answers questions and talks about BDSM, and it's very interesting and very informative. And she talks about her real relationship, so it's really cool. And if you want to just hear the BDSM part, just start at like 25 minutes, and it goes for about half an hour. But the whole podcast is really good, and it's like a porn centric podcast, and it's super, super good, and I really like it so far. So if you want to binge watch, listen to it with me, you totally should, or can, and I suggest it. I've been saying should a lot today. I don't know. I'm like in a dom mood, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, you can use all the new terminology you learned in this video to understand what they're talking about in the podcast, because she uses all of these words. I listened to it yesterday, and I was like, dang, I used all those words in my script. So there's a book about BDSM relationships called Devil in the Details by L.T. Morrison that's super good. And an author that writes a lot about BDSM is Jack Ranella. And he has tons of titles that can help you navigate that BDSM life. And one that has been recommended to me a lot is The Seductive Art of Japanese Bondage by Midori. And I'm going to post all of these, so if you guys didn't catch it, go to my website and I will post the links. But that's it. I feel bad because you seem a little uncomfortable sitting on the floor.
No, I'm totally good.
All right.
There is another book I would recommend.
Oh, good. Go ahead.
It's called The Loving Dominant, and it has a lot of...
The Loving Dominant.
Yeah, it has a lot of tips and guidelines that somebody can follow.
Yeah, that helped you.
A lot of explanation.
Cool. All right. So I'm glad this is a long episode. I went 40 minutes, and I apologize. But I apologize to everyone watching as well. But hopefully you guys learned something. And part 2 is going to go even more in depth into the nitty-gritties of all of these relationship expressions, and hopefully I'll have some like stories. I'm going to do a lot more research about like personal experiences and stuff to give you guys, since I don't have all the time. I don't have Nick's at my disposal. But yeah, so that's it for BDSM part 1. I hope you enjoyed it. Nick, thank you for coming on the show. Yeah, look, here we are.
Oh, what's up?
Oh, man, we didn't put this up very good. But anyway, at least we recovered from that. That was a huge deal. Oh, my God. Okay. Well, I'll see you pussies next week. Goodbye for meow. Yes. That was long.